At this time, I would like to call the City of Bowie regular City Council meeting of Monday, December 4th, 2023, here in council chambers. It is now 8 p.m. At this time, would everyone please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone, and good evening. At this time, I would like to have the city clerk state whether or not we have a quorum.
Yes, Mayor, this evening we do have a quorum. All council is present here in chambers tonight. We have Councilmember Estev, Councilmember Rogers, Councilmember Brady, Councilmember Truesdale, Councilmember Ndebumadu, Mayor Pro Tem Wolfley, and Mayor Adams.
Thank you. I would ask the council, are there any agenda additions, deletions, or amendments? Hearing none, we will move on to citizen participation. Do we have any citizen participation?
Yes, Mayor, and for the record, we did receive one email comment in regards to the Bowie Ice Arena, which was forwarded to council for, and it'll be part for the record this evening.
Thank you. At this time, we will have Mr. Leslie Litz come forward. Good evening.
Good evening. And it's Conitz.
Conitz.
Pretty close. I handed out a paper here, which was a printout from the Bowie patch today. And it's about crime in Prince George County, particularly carjacking. It seems that things are getting significantly worse, and regardless of all the efforts that are taken to, I guess, combat this type of thing. We just had a meeting the other day at Bowie State University regarding this, and it was very interesting. They showed a lot of pictures, a lot of these people that are doing this. A lot of them are teenagers, okay? Armed teenagers. So we have a pretty big problem. I'd like to point out that we don't have a police chief in town yet, okay? We have an acting police chief, and it's now December. Okay, we lost our police chief. We lost our police chief who retired, I believe, in September, okay? And I'm told it's a process to get a new police chief in. Well, we had another crisis called COVID, and there's a thing called the vaccine that we needed, and there's a process for that too. That takes about 2 years, at least 2 years, to get a vaccine through the system to where it can be put out in the public for use. It was accelerated because we had a crisis, okay? As far as I see it, we got a crisis here, and we need to get our police department stabilized with not an acting police chief, but a confirmed police chief. We have an acting police chief who is highly qualified for this. He knows our area. He knows PG County. He knows everybody in it. He knows what we need. He knows the department. He has all the certifications. He has everything we need. I don't know why we're waiting on this. Let's accelerate this process and get this man in there, and let's get our department stabilized and settled so that we can try and do the best we can with this criminal problem that we're having now. The other thing we need is, what I would like to see, please shut that off. The other thing we need is we need to make a point of this to our state legislature, who has a terrible mindset, because what they're doing is as I see it, they're writing legislation that's more pro-crime and anti-police than anything, which is why we are where we are. You got these kids that are perpetrating these crimes. Police cannot even speak with them if they do apprehend them. They have to be represented by a lawyer. The parents can't even come in and intervene. They have to be represented by a lawyer. How are you going to find out where teenagers getting a weapon, unless you're able to talk to them? You've got to change the laws. You need to write a letter. I'm going to ask you, I'm not asking you for money, I'm asking you to write a letter to the state legislature, explain this to them, and tell them they've got to get out of this mindset that they're in and start producing legislation that is anti-crime and pro-police. We need to do that. Anybody, all of us here are at risk of being carjacked and shot during the process. On this paper here, you're going to see there was a FBI agent, an FBI agent, who was carjacked and shot in the process. It appears lately that they're not even going up and telling you, putting a gun in your face and telling you, give me your car keys. They're just shooting you first. So if we don't do something, if we don't stay on this anti-crime thing, we're not going to go anywhere. And anybody who thinks that not addressing a child who's been in this kind of a crime spree is a good thing, you're not helping them. You're hurting them. You're hurting them. You're hurting their families. You're hurting the victims. You're hurting everybody. It's ridiculous. So I ask you to write a letter, and I'm saying to everybody else, if you're here, write a letter to Senator Watson and tell him, support him in his effort to try and put legislation in there that's going to control some of this crime and put these people where they belong. And that's away from us so they don't hurt us. Let's do that. Everybody's got to do it. The other thing is, when you go into those voting booths, you got to think about who you're voting for. Okay? So, with that, I thank you for your time, and please write the letter. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Connors. We will now move on to, we have no presentations this evening, correct? Nor any city boards and committees.
No, sir.
Well, okay. Council announcements, I will open the floor to any council announcements at this time. I would just like to say, though I wasn't able to attend, thank you to staff and others for preparing the holiday tree lighting. I know the weather wasn't the most agreeable, but thank you for doing that, and for those who came out. Having said that, we will now move on to the city manager's report.
Mr. Mayor, how are you this evening, and council, and people out there in television land, especially those people in the K section. The primary function of the staff is to deliver services. And we continue to do that at a high level, especially with the leaf collection. If you were in my neighborhood and you had piles of leaves raked out, our staff came through on time, professionally, and did that. And so I'm proud of that, and many others, but in particular those people. Also, the question of the chief police selection, I intend to have that process completed before the end of this year. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, City Manager. At this time, we will move on to the consent agenda, and I will take in motion.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move to approve consent agenda.
A second. It's been moved and properly second. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, please respond with an aye. Aye. There we go. Opposed, same favor. Hearing none, motion carries.
Thank
We're gonna
you.
get used to these new buttons.
You're getting there.
All right, now we will move on to old business. We have none. And we'll move on to the new business, and we'll turn it over to the Environmental Advisory Committee for updates and priorities. Hey, good evening.
Good evening, thank you. Loving the new technology in here. Let me grab this. This will sadly be the last time that I am presenting to you on behalf of the Environmental Advisory Committee, but eager to share some updates on our projects and upcoming priorities for you all. I'm going to be sharing some pictures and information about our Midwood Pond project that you all approved, and then the priorities for the upcoming year. So, as you can see from the street view of this Midwood Pond landscaping, this was prior to our stormwater retrofitting project. And you can see this was the expectation that was shared with stakeholders for what that project would look like. And so you're seeing a lot of greenery. There's not any greenery, heads up, in the next picture. There's lots of trees, lots of grass. It looks really refreshing and nice. And for a reference point, this is that gate where you enter right on Midwood Lane. BSR is over to your right there. This is what it wound up looking like. And I've showed you all these pictures before. Lackluster at best. And so our goal for this project that you all approved was to bring the community together, bring in some diversity in plant structures, and really just revitalize a corner of this parcel to show you what it could look like if stormwater management was handled a little better throughout the city. And so, again, reference point, this is what it looked like right when we started this project. You can see kind of over in the right corner of that picture, there's some mulch piles there. So the first thing that we did was we brought in lots of mulch, covered the ground to make it primed and ready for us to come in and plant those native plants. And so again, this is what those mulch piles looked like when they first got there. Let me make sure that I'm hitting all my points too. We had our first day of work where we had community members, and you can see Councilman Esteve in the corner of this picture. Thank you for coming. Come and spread out those mulch piles so that the ground could be primed. And then step 2 was to plant over 1,000 plants into this area to see what it could look like. And so we had a planting day. We had so many volunteers come out, more than we expected. We had the Boy Scouts, the Girl Scouts, Bowie High School students. We had kids from Bowie State and Prince George's Community College. It was really amazing. And we thought it was gonna take about 3 hours, and we were done in like 45 minutes. So it was a really beautiful event. And Mayor Pro Tem Dufour Wolfley was there, and we really just, you can see him priming there, you know, getting his hands dirty, and it just turned out phenomenal. I just can't say how grateful I am that we really had people show up that day. So we accomplished all of our goals. We executed the project. We're setting an example, hopefully, for you all to now fund doing this for other stormwater management areas, and so that the residents can really see that it doesn't just have to be dry land hanging out there. It really can be a beautiful area still. So the next steps for staff at this point is just keeping up with what we've done, making sure that the plants that were planted are taken care of properly. And this is something that our staff liaison for the committee has been talking to other actual staff who will be working on this to make sure that the upkeep will be there. And we were really happy with the results. So thank you all so much for letting us do that. And we hope that you'll get a chance to go check it out in the spring as things start blooming again, and it'll look really nice. The next thing is our remaining priorities. And so we've highlighted 6 things here for you all. Some of them are things that we've talked about more than once, but just really making sure to drive the point home. So the first one, and I will go through each of these, is to increase the tree canopy. and prioritize native plants in any planting that the city is doing, expand the existing food waste program, update the city sustainability plan, support the county's plastic bag law that went into effect 3 days ago, goes into effect in January, one of those. January, thank you. Prioritize the water and sewer repairs that we all know need to be done, and then monitor the development projects moving forward and making sure they're environmentally friendly. So the first thing for increasing the tree canopy is one of the things that we discovered while we were working on this stormwater management project is that the native trees and shrubs and plants that are outlined for the city to use, the list is really, really outdated. And so staff has been working a little bit to catch those up, but for that to be implemented, we really want to make sure that we are using the appropriate plants, native plants for stormwater landscaping moving forward. And continuing with the work that we did, hopefully with some funding from you and less volunteer hands, to continue upgrading these stormwater sites across the city. There is an effort to upgrade the city's Plant One Tree on Us program. We're hopeful to get some extra funding there so that there can be more trees available. And then the quality of our forest is really, really important. And working on quantity and quality is really important to make sure that those trees are strong and working together. And I know we've talked about this before. The past couple storm seasons have really taken out so many trees in the city of Bowie, and just making sure that we're focusing on bringing that tree canopy back to life. Next is reducing food waste. So one of the things that we are really excited about and grateful for is that there is a drop-off site coming to the Ken Hill Center for food waste. That's a really big deal, and we're very grateful that that is moving forward. But as always, you know, we are pushing to expand the curbside program for picking up food waste, and then really work on that education piece. You know, it's not like we can expand the program overnight, and we are very aware of that, but making sure that their resources are available to those people who do have access to the curbside pickup so that they really know that they can have curbside pickup, and then making sure that with this new Ken Hill drop-off site, people are really aware that you can take your food scraps there and they don't have to go into the landfill. Oh, how do I go back? I went too far. I'm sorry. Got it. Building on the climate action and sustainability plans, prioritizing funding and support for the proposed fiscal 25 environmental action plan, and making sure that the sustainability division really has the support that they need as they develop the next phase of the plan. It's really important. We've done a great job as a city so far. You know, city services and the city itself, the government, is doing a phenomenal job, but one of the things that we really have to work on is reaching the residents at that level and making sure that they are helping to reach those sustainability goals too. And so having the support from staff to really craft a thoughtful plan to get that done is super important. Now I really broke it and it won't go. There it goes. Okay. Supporting the county's plastic bag law. As you all know, this is happening, but because we're a city, we have to put in the work to make sure that it's being enforced. So really prioritizing and making sure that we're going to do the work to enforce it. If we see a business that's not in compliance, actually doing the work to enforce it. Come on, you can do it. There, it went, okay. Prioritize city water and sewer repairs. This, I mean, goes without saying. You all already know this. You've been hearing about this for a while now, but making sure that we develop a long-term and equitable funding plan for upgrading the water systems and sewer infrastructure overall, not just in the areas that are really struggling right now, because we don't want to have a repeat of what's happening. And we want to make sure that the infrastructure is sufficient and is being properly replaced so that we don't wind up with a scenario like we're facing right now. And then creating a maintenance plan for new and existing infrastructure to make sure that those costs aren't as high as the ticket item is at this point. Come on. monitor and develop and ensure compliance with approved county plans. So we want to make sure that in the stages of development, this is always a hot topic in the city, especially being right next to Crofton, which we all, it goes without saying, getting up Route 3 is really hard, and development is always a hot topic issue in the city as well. And so just making sure that as we do develop these areas, that we're doing them in a way that is environmentally friendly, that we're reducing our carbon footprint while we're putting in the effort to develop. It's the only way to have a sustainable future at this point. And I think we've done a really good job, but there's always more room to grow. So we're hopeful that you all will just keep that in mind as new development projects come up, and you're being really cognizant of that. And with that, I'm happy to take questions, but just thank you all for your support over the years. It has been so great to work with this council on these types of initiatives. You all really have your green thumbs out, and we appreciate it. And thank you again, truly, for approving the pilot program that we did at Midwood. It was such a success, and we're really hopeful that, you know, we can continue to do efforts like that in the city. So happy to take any questions, and our formal report of this will be submitted on Thursday.
Well, I'd like to just say thank you
Yeah.
to you and the committee and all the volunteers. It seems like as you continue to do good work for the city. And we do appreciate that, and we do look to make sure to do everything we can to continue to support.
Thank you.
Along those lines, anybody, any questions or anything this time? Yes, Councilman Stella.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Abby, I just want to say a huge thank you for your leadership of the Environmental Advisory Committee these last several years. We all know that former Mayor Gary Allen's shoes were hard to fill, but you did a really fantastic job.
Thank you.
And the AC continued its work. It took on new initiatives. It worked really well with the Green Team. And so many of the policies and good initiatives that we've taken on as a city are ideas that were generated by the AC, both before you and during your tenure. And so that group, I think more than any other, as well as the Green Team, have done more to shape the city than I think probably any other group out there. And that's because it's got tenacious leadership and people who are persistent and know how to take yes, but also don't take no very often. And so just thank you for everything you're doing. I do want to pick your brain about a couple quick things while we still have you. On tree canopy issues, to what extent do you guys, what kind of pushback do people tend to have when it comes to tree canopy challenges? So like the Plant a Tree on Us program I know is really popular. But I also know we have a lot of residents that are new and moving in, and the first thing they're doing is chopping down all the trees.
Right.
And when you talk to them, they often have a lot of misperceptions about the value of what they're doing.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of curious if you guys have had any insights while you've worked on this.
Yeah, the real hesitancy comes from, you know, somebody driving past their neighbor's house after a big storm and seeing the huge tree in the yard, right? And you're like, oh my gosh, let me cut down all my trees so that never happens to me and it doesn't wind up on my house. But the reality is the more dense that your tree canopy is, the better chance that's not going to happen. So again, it's always this education piece that is, you know, I don't want to say lacking because I think our city staff does a great job educating people on these types of things, but it's whether the residents are actually receptive to hearing that. And so that's really the biggest thing is just people removing trees or not planting more trees as a precaution. And I think, you know, having more education, you can always be learning more about the need for it. And the reality is even planting a new tree, it's not going to get to that level for quite some time. So, you know, yes, Plant One Tree on Us is incredible and increasing our tree canopy is incredible, but it is still going to take a while for the true effects to manifest there.
And Matt, I'm wholehearted supporter of the program, and it's at the point where I'm always looking for, you know, perspectives to share with folks about why they should participate in that program. So if you guys know what the magic words are to persuade people, please share, because we will put them everywhere. Similar on composting, I will confess that I struggle with composting a lot. I personally feel like in my household feels like, you know, we really got good at this recycling thing. Why are you throwing new stuff at us? I understand intellectually the value of composting. I get it. And I understand the challenges with recycling that, especially in recent years, as global economic relationships have changed. I get it. What what have you guys have found is kind of the best way to talk to people and approach people about composting who might be a little compost skeptical?
The biggest thing is kind of the impact that brings it full circle back to the city budget. And don't quote me on the numbers because I don't know, but taking trash to the landfill versus composting, if you removed all of that food waste from your trash bin and composted it, one, you'd have less trash, but two, it's lighter. So there's that less money we're paying to the landfill aspect of it. If you really want to go like, hey, I'm not going to raise your taxes because you're composting. But I think right now, environmental issues are just such a hot button topic that people are always, I want to say, more eager than not to do the small thing that they can. And composting is such a small thing that you can do to make a really big impact. And if you just have a little bin on your counter and you take it out once a week, it's just like taking out your trash, but in a different compartment.
It's always the little habits that are hardest to change. as we
No,
know.
it is. And the other thing I will say too, and I use this myself, is you don't have to be a perfect composter, just like you don't have to be a perfect recycler. If you're exhausted and there's all this food slop in your plastic container and I just don't want to rinse it out this time, the environmental police are not going to come and rain fury on you for doing that. So just the small steps, even if you only compost half of the things, it does make a difference.
No, I really appreciate that, and I know these are going to be long conversations we have for a very long time in the future, but thank you again so much for your leadership. I'm
Yeah,
sorry
of
that we're losing you,
course.
but congratulations on your work and everything that you've done and will do.
Much appreciated. Thank you. Anyone else?
Any other comments or questions? Mayor Pro Tem?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I want to say a special thank you to you as well, Abby. I very much appreciate all the excellent work you've done in the leadership on the EAC. There's so much that's been accomplished that's come to fruition because of your good efforts, as well as the effort of your colleagues.
Yes.
But you've been at the helm, and you've done an excellent job, and it's very much appreciated. And it's nice to see the efforts that you've engaged in that can make a meaningful difference in the long term. And I want to start with one of those items specifically, which is Midwood, which back in the Wayback Machine 3-4 years ago now, people didn't even realize what those little clusters of trees were. They didn't know that there was a drainage pond in the middle.
Right.
And here we were obliged to upgrade that infrastructure. And then all of a sudden people say, oh my goodness, what's this eyesore in the middle of my community? And before it had been some mature trees that had overtaken the properties. So great work, an initiative to move forward with some of these native species. Based on what you've seen there, how, and I was there, I know it was a fairly modest sized, slice of the pie in terms of space. How much of that space do you think we really need to plant in native species, and kind of how far do we still have to go with just Midwood alone?
Yeah, great question. And I will say, if it was up to Elmer, our fearless leader on that project, every ounce of that area would be covered in native plants. I'm not sure that I have the best answer for that, and I don't want to speak out of turn. Tiffany, do you have any thoughts?
I do, yeah. Council, hi, Tiffany Wright, I'm the watershed manager and the liaison for the EAC. And yes, thank you, Abby, for all your hard work. So we actually are working with a contractor now and some folks from the USDA NRCS, the National Resource Conservation Service, to try to come up with an idea of what would be the best species to plant. We've found some pretty nasty stuff in the soil. It's really inhospitable, which is why we continue to have erosion there and lose trees and that sort of thing. So we're hoping to cover 75% of it. It depends on what the budget looks like and what the time frame looks like and what the engineers say is okay.
Well, I want to say that this is a great beginning, and as staff is looking forward to it, Tiffany, I know you're going to be all over this. As we're moving forward with the new budget year, I'd like to see us work towards bringing that Midwood Pond facility into something that's both environmentally friendly, but also aesthetically pleasing for the community, to kind of restore an asset. And I know it's going to take a little time in planning because we don't want to undermine the good efforts of the functioning of that facility. It's actually got to be a stormwater management. It's not just a park where you can, plant whatever you want. But it is important to try and bring to, some semblance of beauty to that area for the sense of community. And I think that this has been a great start, and I think we can do both. And I'm looking forward to seeing what staff has to offer in terms of, bright ideas for finishing that. And then we also have the remainder. There are far more than just Midwood that's out there. A lot of the facilities are actually, special taxing districts, and as well as the areas that we're responsible for as a city in its own right. So very much look forward to expanding that and being able to do that to all of our areas that are, currently just serving as stormwater management. Now they can be actually an improved visual asset as well. So thank you very much.
We would be thrilled to see
Yeah.
that.
Well, I think that's where we're heading, so thanks for planting the seed, if you will.
Yes, thank you.
Then the next question I have for you is on forest stand delineations. I noticed that was your, pardon me. All right, I thought I was going to sneeze, I apologize.
That's okay.
On forest stand delineations, you indicate that we should be doing that with some of our properties. Typically, we see that as part of a preliminary plan of subdivision. What is the thought process on making that recommendation, and what value do we get out of doing that if we have no intention of actually developing or subdividing the properties?
No, great question, and I'm also going to pass this one to Tiffany if
All
that's
right,
okay.
fair enough.
Yeah, so we are looking at a few sites that we think are really important from a strategic standpoint next to streams, or perhaps that are in the green infrastructure network. We just want to know what we have in these parcels. There's no plan to sell or do anything like that, so you're right, there's nothing that's coming down the line with that. But we just want to know what's there and is it worth preserving? Do we leave it like it is and maybe go to other parcels where we maybe want to do a little bit of work with invasives control, or, do some additional plantings? So just kind of getting an idea of the quality of the forest on some of our larger parcels.
Okay, all right, thank you. And thank you again very much for time well served and greatly appreciated. And on behalf of the community, thank you for your time and efforts.
Thank you, I appreciate it. Anybody else?
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you for the work you did. When I cut my teeth in council many years ago, Gary Allen was the mayor, so I learned from probably the best when it comes to environmental issues.
Oh, yes.
Appreciate all those efforts. And I don't want to make this comment and sound like it's a criticism, but if you ever look at pictures of Bowie from the 60s, remember Bowie was a farm. Mm-hmm. And we have, compared to then, we have a massive tree coverage. Now, we can do better.
Yes.
And the reason I say that is also that the Fairwood Turf used to be a turf farm. And they have a lot of houses and a lot of developed areas there that were farm areas. And they will start to look like Bowie as far as the tree canopy is concerned eventually, because they'll start filling in from what they had. Question I have was the Midwood Lane Stormwater Management Project, was that a pilot project to
It was, yes.
set up, develop criteria and how to do it and what have you? Did as part of that selection, were all of the stormwater management ponds listed and then prioritized for which ones could be done and which ones may not be worth it to do because they're too small? And
Yeah, it's a great question. I know we also looked at a couple other properties. This was just the one that was the largest, had also the largest area where we really felt like we could make an impact and show the impact. But I wouldn't say, just from a committee standpoint, that we vetted every single stormwater management pond. It just, it kind of fell into our laps that way.
okay, but I think if we're going to be serious about doing this,
I think we need to basically list them all, then rank them accordingly. And there are a few stormwater management special taxing districts are for the larger ones that are tied to large commercial development.
Yes.
But there are many other ones that are not covered by that.
Yes, and I will say, I think Tiffany has definitely done some work on, getting them all listed, what's going on with each one. She can definitely be a great resource for that.
Excellent, excellent. I got to read my notes here. The food waste.
Yes.
Composting. I've been composting the whole time I've been in Bowie. And matter of fact, the amount of trash that I put out weekly fits in about a quarter of the trash can that I used to fill to put in the landfill. And now I struggle with the recycling, the big recycling one, because it's sometimes too heavy with all the stuff that I have in there. But with respect to the food waste project, are all food waste candidates for food waste composting, or are things like chicken carcasses and T-bone steaks and stuff like that should really go out with the regular trash rather than composting?
Our sustainability manager, when she gives out the bins, she has a list that goes with it of what our program can take. I believe we take eggshells. Honestly, I haven't looked at the list in a while, but it's properly laid out to anyone who's getting one. And I'm sure in the efforts of promoting the Ken Hill Center, there will also be a list of what you can and can't.
That's important. After I was doing it a while, I discovered that eggshells and tea bags are not good candidates for composting.
Yeah, it depends kind of on who's taking your compost,
Right.
of what level of hardness or time to break down they're willing to take from you.
Well, mine was always a challenge because when I'd go to distribute it in the yard, I'd have to pick up the eggshells
Yep.
and the tea bags. So made for an interesting. But if we can get that word out on what is, because not all food waste is compostable.
Yes.
And therefore, we need to, if we're going to make this program be successful, we need to be able to alert the citizens on what can and what can't.
Absolutely.
You had a slide there that was talking about the water and sewer pipe replacements, and it's more to staff. The problems with our water system with the pipes, is it a lead issue? Is it related to lead pipe?
That is not my specialty, so I will ask the Assistant City Manager to chime in.
No, we do not have a significant lead problem in the city of Bowie's water system. Our main issue is in terms of the tuberculation in the cast iron pipes. That's the main issue there. And then, of course, our sewer system is getting older as well. So taking a look at the infrastructure there for deterioration, we have a number of clay lines and things along those lines. The issue with the sewer system gets to be with I&I inflow and infiltration into the system, which adds additional water going off to our treatment plant that we must treat. We ultimately are treating rainwater in addition to our sewage. Those are our two main issues in our system.
So it's not. The reason I raised that was last week there's an article about the Biden administration to require replacing lead pipes within 10 years. But in that article, it also referenced the cost would be in the range of $15 to $30 billion. But they pointed out that there's $15 billion in the infrastructure plan from 2 years ago that is available for pipe replacement. I'm wondering if it's strictly tied to lead pipe replacement, or if we could see if we could get a grant for that to help in our costs.
I do know the priority of that funding is in lead replacement, lead line replacement. Those tend to be in older, more urban areas. Also, Midwest, Chicago area had significantly larger amounts of lead piping than other areas. But that's the primary focus of the federal funding.
I understand that, but, okay, thank you. Thank you, Mayor, that's it.
All right, thank you. Any other comments? Councilwoman Rogers?
Yes, hi, good evening. Good evening. So I'm interested in the composting aspect of this because I notice citizens that live in the rest of Prince George's County that have their trash picked up twice, they have a big composting thing out there. And composting, when I think about it, just kind of makes me nauseous. But I can
not
work
the
through
only
that.
person.
I can work through that. But so the thing is, people know it's happening. And sitting here listening to this conversation, I have not really tracked on composting. And it probably would be great if there was more information shared with the community like you talked about, educating the community and also providing incentives. And then talking about the budget impact, I think, has a great impact on people's decision-making around the environment and doing things such as composting. So I'm very interested because I have not tracked on it, but now that I've heard this conversation, definitely would be looking for more information so that, I can help tell the story as well, and try to get people to convert, including myself. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you for what you do. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Well, and thank you. And I'm happy to be a resource of more information. I know our sustainability manager also loves to talk your ear off about composting, so I'm sure she'd be thrilled to tell you more information about it also. But don't worry about the smell and all the things. You can always keep it in your freezer until it has to go out. Anything else?
Any other questions? Anyone?
I actually do have a quick follow-up.
Oh, go ahead.
Nobody
Constable,
else has any other.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Quick question, and I think this is a Tiffany question. The balance between composting versus garbage disposal in terms of relative value / merit, because I know that we do have compostables that come out of the the sewer stream as well. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Are you looking for a cost difference
or-
or the weight?
Well, the relative value, that is to say, is it that much better if I take my food scraps and put it in a compost bin vis-a-vis putting it down a disposal, which will actually get through that process as well, so it's not going to a landfill either. So I'm wondering if there's a kind of a trade-off, if there's been any kind of value discussion between the two streams.
Yeah, so I can't speak to that. What I know is that upwards of 25% of the loads that we take to the landfill are actually food waste. And so from the kind of like the ratio, it would be nice if we could get our tip fees down by 20% or something. I don't know if there is a difference. I know that I tend to shy away from my garbage disposal personally because I don't think, the water system and the wastewater system, it certainly can treat anything that it gets pretty much, but it's just, I feel like it's a little bit easier on the environment and the processes required to break down the food if it goes to a compost bin. With respect to different foods that can be put in, the county compost facility gets hot enough that it can break down eggshells and tea bags and coffee and chicken and grease and things like that. For home compost and even your disposal, you have to be a lot more careful about what you put in your disposal.
And I will just add to that, the reality is I don't think you're putting an entire stale loaf of bread down your garbage disposal, but you could put it in your compost bin. So just some food for thought there.
Stale bread? I don't know if I've ever seen stale bread.
No, I
It pretty
know.
much,
What a
it's
concept.
pretty much never met a carb I didn't like. So I don't see have too much stale bread around our house. But no, there's a valid point to that too. Thank you.
If I may add to this, I'd like to discourage the putting of food waste down the drain. There are issues with what's called FOG, fats, oils, and grease that go down into the system. And when they collect in sewage pumping stations and in lines, they can cause challenges in the system because of the collection of the fats, oils, and grease that congeal and catch other things. So we would actually like to discourage people from putting their food waste down the drain in that manner. There are really two components in regards to the costs associated with the food waste program and your sanitation as well. There is the landfill, the tipping costs. So of course, all of the food waste that is kept out of the landfill, we are saving on the tipping costs the tonnage cost that we have. We actually do have an additional collection service cost that comes with the composting program. So for our pilot program that we have for composting, we are sending more trucks down the street and personnel for that collection. The challenges, of course, get to be economies of scale and having enough people participate. It was mentioned about the drop-off location. We're testing the use of the drop-off location to have our constituents come and drop off their food waste. That way we're going to have a single collection point. And so we need to evaluate the costs in regards to what makes sense for going around and collecting the tons of these compostables and not sending them to the landfill versus the cost of collecting these in the waste stream and sending them to the landfill. We're still seeing how successful it is in Bowie. We want to encourage people to participate and use it. It's good for the environment, but in terms of understanding, that this is absolutely better from a cost perspective, we need more work on this.
So notwithstanding the fats, oils, and greases, we don't have any other issues associated with the sewer system as a, disposal channel for, say, lettuces and,
I will
food.
say that the sewer system is designed to process organics. Is that far enough?
Yep, all right. I can live with that, yes.
And in the most perfect EAC endorsed world, there would be once a week trash pickup and once a week compost pickup. And that would require less staff. But, that's down the line and we understand that one step at a time.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, staff, as well.
Any other comments? Staff?
Okay.
All right, thank you
Thank
so
you
very
all.
much again.
Much appreciated.
Look forward to moving forward. All right, at this time, we will move on to item B, the Bowie Ice Arena Design Development Presentation. I'll
Mr. Mayor.
turn it over to staff.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to take a moment to introduce our new Director of the Community Services Department, Mr. D. Nick Spurgeon, who is going to introduce the ICE experts tonight.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Thank you, City Manager Lott. Appreciate that. So this evening, we're going to have a conversation on the new ice arena. The goal of this presentation is to provide a progress update on the comprehensive design work that has been completed since July. This project involves the design for a one-for-one replacement of the existing facility and a new single-sheet building with similar programming. So at this time, we're excited to have Mr. Tom Betty and Mr. Derek Kaischafer from JLG Architects here this evening from Minnesota to present our current design for this important project. Tom?
Thanks, Nick.
Good evening.
Good evening. I'm Tom Betty with JLG Architects, and it's been about 20-plus months since I've been here. So Mayor, council members, excited to be here and share the progress. A lot of hard work's been going into this, and I think we're at a nice milestone right now as we develop this project for you. So I thought, Nick, if you want to go to the next slide. Nick's my controller tonight. I can't do it from up here. I don't know if is there a laser on this one? Nah, that's fine. So I thought I'd start with a big picture summary of, where we were, right? We did a study back in 2021, and we looked at the existing ice arena. We went through that and, multiple explorations, and the cost of those improvements were high. I mean, the building wasn't designed originally as an indoor ice arena, but it, got there, over the years. And then in March of 2022, we explored, an alternative site. Can we find a site within the city of Bowie that can accommodate this? And it was, by the Bowie Golf Club, and so we did an additional study on that, just to check the site out, make sure it could fit. Looked at traffic, looked at soils, and everything checked out, pretty well. So, from there was an RFP issued, and we were fortunate enough to be awarded that project in July. So, since then, where we're at right now, if you want to go to the next slide. So we completed schematic design, And, in the architectural world, we always talk about these funny phases: schematic design, design development, construction documents. So we're about a third of the way through the project from a design standpoint, big picture. And, so we're at that point right now. And what we're looking at, we had a public stakeholder meeting. Sorry, I looked at my wrong sheet here. Public stakeholder meeting back a couple weeks ago, and big turnout, large turnout. Quite a few of the council members were there, and so we had discussions with them, and I think it was received quite well. Now we're in floor plan development. We're pretty well developed with those plans, and as we mentioned, it's a one-for-one like replacement. I mean, it's literally within percentage points. Probably the difference on some of the square footage, there's a little bit of circulation, and I'll get into that with a two-story scheme, not much, but we're putting things like proper storage in here for the facility so it can operate instead of storing everything around the rink where, kids are playing with it, it's getting in the way, it's hard to manage from a fire exit standpoint and so on. So a little more storage, and then just the things that naturally change it. Restrooms today versus 40, 50 years ago take more space, and the number of toilet fixtures you need. It's a different calculation. So that adds to it. But we are currently in design development, so that's at next about, in round numbers, 30%. And that's really where we're getting into heavy engineering. So all the refrigeration engineers, they're doing their work, the civil engineers, the structural, mechanical, all that stuff. So we're really starting to get a better picture of the whole facility. So we're looking at having that design development package due. We have on here December 8th. We actually are going to push that out 1 week just because we had a meeting last week with City, and there's some comments, and we want to incorporate those in just to give us a better, an accurate picture of costs as we move forward. Next slide. So then where we're going, we're looking at, getting construction documents to commence, right around Christmas time. We're going to start on those. And so we'll bring those through, have another public stakeholder meeting. I think it's good to share the progress, where we're at, what's going on, get comments, feedback in. That'll be in January 23rd. Even though we pushed that date out a week, it doesn't impact the overall schedule. Nothing changes on that. And then I'll be back here for City Council meeting on February 20th. And then our construction documents in mid-April, and then we'll go to bidding and so on and so forth. That's the plan. With that, I'll do a high-level run-through. This is the site plan. So the tealish colored block is the ice arena. It's right on Laurel Bowie Road in Rockledge. You have the golf clubhouse to the far left, that L-shaped building. And then for the ice arena itself, we have a parking lot that has 136 parking stalls. We do have, the site takes advantage of the grades. If people may not notice it, but when you go out there, the site actually slopes about 14, 15 feet from east to west. So we're able to take advantage of that, and we're actually burying part of the building underground. A couple of things. It really minimizes the amount of imported fill and so on, so it takes that to our advantage. From a sustainability standpoint, we're not trucking as much stuff. We're kind of paying attention to that, and it really gives us a great opportunity to get a main entry up above, get a player entry on the lower level. I'll tell you, I've been designing ice arenas for coming on 35 years, a long time, and whenever we can take what I call the athletes and the spectators and create a separation, it makes the building run better, right? It just runs a lot better. So with that, we are taking advantage of the existing stormwater ponds. We do have a underground structure, some pre-treatment and so on, some bioswales, and then everything ties into that, the stormwater ponds. And then the other big thing on this from a site planning standpoint, we are planning for future expansion. I always say you don't want to design a new building and put yourself in a corner. So we have the ability on the front portion of it, and I'll show you that in the floor plans, but an area for, could be future dry land, could be additional meeting rooms, could be anything. And then to the north, we have the ability to expand lobby, add another ice sheet, do that type of thing. So we're set for the future if that ever would happen. With that, next slide. So here's an aerial of what it could look like. And so you see the ice arena there, you see the parking. You see within the parking, we're adding greenery into it. We're trying to break up that mass of asphalt, make it give it a little better scale, tuck it in the neighborhood. There is one thing, if you go out to the site, there is a gate that shuts down the access road into the golf course. We're going to move that gate back a little bit, but you'll still have a gate there, and we'll have a gate up at the north entry too. So we can secure the site whenever we need to do it, middle of the night and so on. So really tucks in there quite well. The other thing of tucking it in to the earth, bringing it down that 14, 15 feet, the building's not as imposing. On Laurel Bowie Road, it has a nicer scale to it, which I think is really nice, given the area and the neighborhood. Nick, next slide. So this is the lower level plan. And if you look to the far left, you'll see there's a player entry. It's a pair of double doors. So players can come from the parking lot right into that area, proceed to the right, get to the team rooms. We do, what we like about this plan, it's a really safe setup for users. The gray area on the far left, those blocks, that's the ice resurfacer room, the ice mechanical room, and mechanical and electrical room. So that resurfacer, coming out with its water, it's a big machine, right? Heavy, hard to see around. It comes out right on the ice sheet, then can go back off of it. The players turn and go to the right. There's restrooms, skate rental, and on the far right are all the team rooms and locker rooms. So we kind of split, the kids up from the dangerous stuff and make it function quite well. The other things down there, you'll see in the gray area, we have lower lobby, skate change area. It's important to have that for, skate rental and public open skates, some more storage. And then we do have, the mechanical requirements of hot water heaters and electrical panels and all those good things that we're taking care of. And then 5 locker rooms with toilet facilities. One of the things we did here is the top 4 locker rooms each share a toilet shower. So it allows us to cut down on the number of toilets, and, they take more to maintain in the showers, to clean and so on. So, and the ability to lock them down. You may have little kids in there, like 5-year-olds, little mite team. You don't really need the bathroom open for them, so you can lock it down. You have your older kids, you have your adults, they can access it and it works well. The ice sheet itself is the same size as what's at the existing Bowie Ice Arena. It's an NHL size sheet. That's just really the only standard that's truly out there. It's 85 by 200 feet. And then we have our team boxes to the north, so where the teams sit in the penalty box and scorekeeper, it's all in a line. So I call that more of a youth hockey model. It allows as a coach to communicate with a kid who, a young kid may be in the penalty box for the first time. It allows them to communicate, calm things down, let them know what's going to happen. So it really functions quite well for that community level arena. Nick, next slide. The upper level. So on the right, you see the main entry. So you're coming in, there's a stair that goes down, there's an elevator that goes down, pro shop right up front. To the right of the entry, we have our open offices, manager's office. Once again, more restrooms. We do have a mother's room in here. We do have unisex toilet rooms in here. And then we have our concessions, that's in that green color. And then a couple of multi-purpose rooms up towards the top. And that multi-purpose room has an operable divider, so it could be a larger room, could be a smaller room. And really, you need that type of space in these facilities for everything from team meetings to birthday parties to all those things that can also add revenue. And then the seating is backloaded. What I mean by that, you come in behind the seating and then go down into the seats. So it's nice from a spectator standpoint. You don't have people walking in front of you getting to their seats, and you can see the ice. You're kind of above the ice level, that front row about 9 feet or so above ice. And then we have ADA seating, our requirements within there, and then there's a stair in the far left. So it's kind of how the plan sets up real clean and easy. Okay, next slide. This is an image, and we really leaned on the city of Bowie, the new branding and so on, to make it, we know it's a city project, city building. We think we like the colors because it added a looseness to it, right? A little more of a, hey, there's an activity or something fun going in there. It's not quite as serious. And so we like that impact of it. And the building will really be, the colored pieces will be metal panel. The rest of the building will be insulated precast concrete, so real durable. And that insulated concrete works well in ice arena environment in that it controls moisture. and it controls dew points, and I don't want to get nerdy on you, but there's a lot of stuff that goes into these ice arenas because of the humidity levels and different seasons, and it's a product that really works well and just lasts. It stands the test of time. Next slide. Here we have a couple images inside. So this is up above in the lobby, looking down to the ice sheet. And then you see where those trees are at. If you ever did an expansion, that would simply come out, move it out about 120 feet, and we do our new addition, and we're still set. So clean, kind of nice views to the ice, allows people to, a lot of parents hang around for that hour and a half while their kids are on the ice. Gives them a nice place to do that. Also, you'll notice in the ice arena itself, we do have natural light coming in up high. Helps us a few things, lead credit, but it makes a better indoor environment. A lot of times you can use this facility, early on before there's skaters in there without the lights on, right? You can get from front and back. And then I like it, and you see a light monitor too, where we have it up above in the lobby. This time of year, most time when you're in an ice arena, it's dark out, there's activity there, there's something going on, it's just not a dark industrial building. So I think that's a nice piece. Next slide. Here's, we're in back, kind of by where the Zamboni area is, where you'd come out, and up front, those big windows are up towards the lobby, and then you can see the seating. From a design standpoint, there are some comments that came up in that public meeting. We really looked at the exterior being this, kind of Bowie-centric design, right, with the branding and so on. And then when we came inside, we wanted to pay homage to, the existing Bowie ice arena, the colors, they have a long history. So we integrated that into the ice, into some seating, into some colored accents and so on. And with that, next slide. This is the front entry, so you're right inside, kind of probably about 15 feet inside the front doors. Once again, bringing some of that branding, simply done with some vinyl graphics. You see some panels hanging. Looking at, acoustics are always big in this. There's a lot of people, a lot of talking. You can see the pro shop to the left. Once again, that window going out to the north, bringing natural light in, connecting it to the environment, but also set up for any possible future expansion. And with that, we'll end with, this is cost estimate that was done at schematic level. When we get done with the design development, that's when we can really get into quantity takeoffs of everything and really dig into it. But you look at, construction, we have a subtotal of 19.9 million. We add in escalation. We have a big contingency in there right now. As we develop this further, that puts you at 23.6. Our general conditions and all those things, bonds, insurance, gets you 26.5. And then the soft costs of AE fees, equipment, scoreboards, those types of things. Right now, we're looking at total project cost about 29.1. But like I said, this is schematic level, and as we get through DD and we get, we can really dig into it and hit it hard. So that was a quick run through of many months of work. Okay.
Thank you very much.
You bet.
Appreciate that. I'll open it up to questions from council at this time, if you have any. Councilman Staff?
I appreciate the presentation and the stakeholders meeting you guys participated in a few weeks ago. One quick question. I know at the stakeholders meeting, some current ICE amenity users had some feedback on placement of certain amenities. Is that something that you guys were able to go back to and contemplate in your plans?
Yeah, and that's, when I mentioned we're going to take that extra week in finishing up DD, that's part of it.
Understood.
There are some conversations on everything from scoreboard placement to all those things, yeah. And then we're going to look at some pricing options too with that. We had your common practice for city projects is go through a VE exercise. So we're incorporating some of those. We want to split up, understand costs of things. So we're giving our consultants and ourselves a chance to incorporate that.
This might be a better question for staff, but is some sort of feedback mechanism on the project available online, or has one been distributed with existing users? Because what tends to happen with all these projects is that after we've signed the dotted line, people come out of the woodwork and say, oh, hey, you need to move this. And by then, it's too late. So I'm just wondering, to what extent has this been shared with current stakeholders, and is there a way for them to be able to get feedback to us now while we can do something about suggested changes.
Great question. We will make sure that gets instituted this week.
Understood. And I'm not trying to add further delays. I just want to make sure that stakeholders who are available, and actually for anyone who might be here watching at home, what is the most expeditious way to get further feedback on the project to the city?
So at this time, what my plan is, we're going to put in some form of a contact information within the Ice Arena project webpage. So all of the residents would, anybody that's interested in this project, they'll be able to email directly any comments and feedback directly to the team.
Perfect. A general question about maintenance. One of the reasons why we're looking at this right now is because our existing ice arena is like past its expiration date as far as, usability. And we've had, I think, 2 or 3 consultants at this point tell us that building a new facility is more cost effective than trying to refurbish the existing one. The current facility makes back, I want to say, like 80% of its operating costs. Is that still the case?
It's approximately 70.
We're down to 70%. I know that maintenance has gotten more expensive as the building has aged.
That's correct.
With a new facility, do we have any sense of what recuperation might be as far as operating costs are concerned?
What we do know is that efficiencies will be enhanced based on the construction type. The current facility is terribly inefficient. There's no insulation. It's a 50-year-old shell of the building that is, again, it's not very efficient. It's not very sustainable in its building mechanisms. So we do know that we're going to have an enhancement when it comes to those energy efficiencies that is expected. We also do anticipate a rental rate increase, but no, I do not have a cost recovery estimate for you at this time.
Okay, but we are going to be operating a more efficient facility with newer technology. It's not going to be what we currently have, which is a proverbial ice skating rink inside of a tent.
That is correct, yes.
No, I can talk to that a little bit.
Supported by a tin roof. Okay, great.
Yeah.
I appreciate your work on this, and I appreciate your time, and just any additional opportunities we can get for feedback from the public now would be better, because there is going to be someone in 6 months who sends me an email and says, "You guys didn't think about this," and I'm going to go, "I don't skate. I didn't know to ask." Yeah. So the sooner the better with the comments. Thank you.
You bet.
Any other council members? Mayor Pro Tem?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a quick question on the graphics in the entrance or just outside the team store, if you will. Are you planning it so that the graphics can be changed over the course of 2, 3, 4, 5 years as we change our branding or colors, or if we have some other, mindful reason to do so?
Yeah, so, interior, those, the Bowie logo crossed up, that's simply vinyl graphics, so you can change it out anytime. It's, one of the tricks in our industry with those types of projects now, you gotta switch them out, and, especially if you're working on some facilities for the ECHL and NHL, we're always looking at ways to change those out.
Someone may change the name, yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then out front, the metal panels, those will, they can come off and you can put in a new panel if you want. But it's a panel that's meant to last, more than 5 years. Just, we want durability on that. But same thing, you could always vinyl wrap those panels too if you wanted to.
Excellent, thank you. And then you mentioned using existing stormwater infrastructure. I assume that's all the golf course ponds that would be just incorporated into the stormwater management plan for this?
Correct. Yep. We are doing things on site, with some bioswales and then underground rate control and so on. Dewberry, who's our civil engineer, they know this area inside and out, and they're working on it. So we were actually able to reduce a little bit of that, the requirements from the study to now, which is great.
Excellent. And then just to make sure, and I'm sure you have, but just got to ask, make sure that you've been briefed in and you're aware of the changes that are being proposed for the golf course, and ensuring that doesn't have any adverse impact on your plans.
Correct. Yep, okay. We're good.
All right,
yep,
excellent. I just want to make sure someone says, wow, they moved a hole, and they didn't tell us, and that affects the drainage.
Yeah.
Okay,
nope,
great.
I think we're good, and, side of the building that faces the golf course, if someone really takes a bad tee shot some way, somehow, it's 10,000 PSI concrete, it's not going to damage
There's
it.
nothing to add, no. Excellent. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thanks for all the good work on this. I love the direction we're going in it. I think it's a well-deserved improvement over the current infrastructure. Thank
Appreciate
you.
that. Thank you.
Any other council members? Councilmember Brady?
Sorry, inadvertently I was voting, wrong button. First off, thank you for this presentation. It's kind of deja vu all over again.
Yeah, it isn't.
This is the latest evolution in design. This project goes back to, in the spring, it'll be 10 years since we first started talking about replacing it. The first question I have is, but I preface it, the question with, when we built this building, we told the architect to build or to design a building that had a 50 to 75, if not 100-year life to it. The current ice arena is 50 years old, but I think it's well beyond its design life, not just its existing life.
Right.
What's the design life for this building that you're proposing?
Well, easily 50-plus years.
I'm sorry.
50-plus years.
50-plus
easily.
years.
And I'm going to, these types of facilities that we have, well, heck, I have some of them that are 35 years old already, and they look like they're brand new, using similar type systems, except the mechanical systems now are a lot better than 35 years ago from an energy efficiency, comfort level. But to answer your question, there's some of these types of using long span steel, roof joists, the precast wall panels, concrete block interior walls at the lower level, the places that take, they're 70-plus years old and still going without a lot of work. And the floors now, they say 50 years, or expecting a lot longer lifespan because the refrigerated floor has pipes in it. But now we use high-density polyethylene, and instead of clamps, they're all fusion welded. So it's the same as the natural gas that comes to your house. Right. That same type of weld system where the joint's actually stronger than the pipe. So ever since we've switched to those in the last 25 years, and they've been great. So we expect it to last a long time.
Okay. And this goes to the plus and minus design cost expense, if you will. From what you proposed, is there any impact on the cost if you didn't factor in providing for accommodations for a second sheet?
I will.
And let me finish the whole.
Sure.
What I'm looking at, if we don't do it, compared to if we do a second sheet, are there savings that can be realized because we spent some money now? So if you follow where I'm going with that
I know where you're
question.
going. I know exactly where you're going. And I would say the savings would be the difference in a wall footing of about 8 inches to a foot in thickness. That's it. So a few $1,000s, $2,000 to $3,000. It's nothing. I mean, it really is. The problem, and I've had to deal with this, when they're not planned, then in the future to build it, it really drives the cost up because we're adding extra columns and they eat into space. So we almost do it automatically now. Okay. Because the system of a precast wall panel, by its nature, will already take the roof load. So you're not paying any more for that.
Okay.
It's really just the footing. And in the ice resurfacer room, where we have that set, you can literally take those wall panels out that are on the north, move them further out north to set that up. So you're not even losing anything. So it's been a real economical thing to do.
That's a good approach. As far as the electrical and the water services coming in, would it be sized for the single facility and then upgraded if you do a second, or would it be sized for the ultimate build-out?
Usually what drives the water utility size is the first ice sheet. So I haven't dug into it with my engineers, but my guess it'd be the same size pipe anyway.
Okay.
It typically is, from all the facilities I've done. It doesn't change your fire suppression line size, any of that, because it's all based off area of zones. So I would expect that to not have a change.
That's that one. And the night of the stakeholders meeting a couple of weeks ago, there was a lot of discussion about public art.
Yes.
And that is something that can be accommodated in what you're doing in your design.
Yeah, and I apologize for not pointing that out during the presentation. You have all these great things you're going to say, and I forgot one. But we actually designed on the front of the building, just off the parking lot to the left of the main entrance. We have a whole area there that we would anticipate to be a great area for public art. No matter, we have a placeholder in. We really liked the images that were in the original Bowie Ice Arena blueprints, 50 years ago. Someone had some nice artwork of different, like a figure skater, a hockey player, a rec skater, and we simply put those out there as something. But I would anticipate you'll go through some type of process to figure out the public art side of it.
Okay.
But we're thinking about that.
Okay. And I couldn't tell from the renditions that you've shown, how many parking spaces are you providing here, and how does that compare with what's at Allen Pond for the existing ice rink?
Well, it's 136 stalls, right? So we have 136 stalls at the new facility. And I have to apologize, I can't recall the number at Allen Pond. I do know this much. Allen Pond suffers from different pressures, meaning people who are using the park versus the ice arena, so there's conflict and there's really not all that many stalls there. Where this one, the 136 are gonna serve you for 85% of your activities that are going on there. You may have a big game, big event, and what's nice about it is right across the drive, that goes into the golf course, there's that nice surface lot of parking. Well, when the ice season's going, the big time of it, right, where you're gonna attract people to go to a big game, the golf course really isn't in operation. So we see that as overflow, and then we also provided, it's hard to see on the site plan, but we have a safe pedestrian access to get over to the arena. So I think you're 100-fold better.
Okay. And this is more to staff and my colleagues. I see a similarity for the entrance here to the golf course and the ice rink and Rockledge Drive. I see it very similar to what goes on at Marquette and Idlewild Drive as far as an offset that's in a single signalized configuration. And I would like to see if we can't look at that as a possible solution. There's already problems with traffic at Rockledge. There's already conflict with cars going into the golf course. So possibly looking at, as part of this project, when we move forward, to see if we can't get a signalized intersection of the offset entrance versus the Rockledge. That's one marker. Go ahead.
I was going to say, we'll take note. The project team will talk to State Highway.
Good. And the other thing, just throwing down, if memory serves me, either the city paid for in its entirety or partially Bowie Community Center, and Park and Planning ran it. I think there was a cost sharing back for not the South Bowie, but the one there by Marketplace. I would like to pursue a possible cost sharing with Park and Planning for this ice rink. And maybe if we can bring them in and have a serious discussion, that would be helpful. Because this 29 million approximately that you've priced is 10 million more than what a two-sheet facility, as I recall, was proposed 10 years ago. So I think maybe there's an opportunity to discuss with Park and Planning a possible sharing of costs. Thank you, Mayor.
Any other council members? Councilmember Andabamadu?
Hi there, good evening. Thank you so much for the presentation. So just apologies in advance if I ask any questions that you've already covered in your presentation. I really just want to make sure that my constituency gets a very clear and concise answer without having to go through the entire presentation for themselves. The first one is, can you talk a little bit more about what is being recommended as the proposed delivery method for this project?
I'm sorry, say that again?
The proposed delivery method. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
As far as for going into construction?
Correct.
Right now, it's design, what we're doing, and then bid it, and then build it with a general contractor.
Okay, with a general contractor. Okay, that's helpful. Then the other question is, have you, when you went through this process, did you take a look at what other regional partners are doing or what they have done in the last 2 years in terms of other ice rinks that have been built and within the surrounding 30-mile radius?
Yeah, we did a high-level look at it.
Okay.
And there's, some new ones that just opened. So, yeah, this would be, in line with those.
Were there any particular learnings that you got from what you saw within that research? And were there any regional partners that stood out to you that we could have possibly got in on their contract as well to make our cost more efficient for us?
As far as like consultants, are you saying, or?
Regional partners in terms of other organizations that are building ice rinks. So that could be the city of DC, that could be DC, that could be other cities throughout Maryland.
No, it's kind of outside of, an RFP was issued and we were hired to design the ice arena for here.
Right.
So, yeah, we weren't hired to do a market analysis and study of everything, so.
But I guess my question is, as a part of your design, like, did your team just come up with the design or did you lean on other research to come up with the type of design? Or were you mainly relying on the community meetings that you attended? You kind of took that feedback and then...
We're relying on a couple of things. One, like for like. That was a strong statement. We want like for like in the ice arena, so that was number one. Number two, listening to the stakeholders, seeing what they had to say. That was, a big piece of it. And then, like I said, 30-plus years of ice arena experience, 80% of my rinks being community-based rinks like this, bringing that to the table.
Okay.
So that's how we approached it.
Okay. Can you give or provide at a later time, you probably won't be able to provide that tonight because it might take long, but just a detailed breakdown between the soft and hard costs?
Yeah, that'll be in our next round of pricing.
Okay, but we don't have that yet.
No, we just
Okay.
we have a percentage base holding, for soft cost, construction costs.
Okay. And then I think the last question that I have for you is on the cost, the high-level cost that you've come up with already. Has there been any value engineering done on those cost projections?
We just had our meeting last week, and so we're looking at, some options to reduce cost. Also looking at some alternative things like, a couple of things that came up, if we eliminate some of the translucent panel that's up high, how much can we save there? The roof monitors in the front lobby, that's the skylights that come in, what's the value of those? And there was a few others that we're looking at. The one thing is we have the square footage down. I mean, we're down to some minimums in areas, so we kind of squeezed this plan already. So I think from that standpoint, it's pretty difficult. We did talk about some site things, are there some efficiencies we can find here and there? So that's why we're taking that week, we're incorporating those into the drawings.
Okay, awesome.
Yep.
I think my last question is mainly more for staff. Might not have the answer to this yet, but when we talked about the delivery method up front, has there been any kind of evaluation or thought given to CM at risk instead of just going with the general contractor?
So I don't think we're at that stage yet in terms of looking at that, but we can evaluate all the options when it comes time for putting together the plan for going out for bid and construction.
Okay, awesome. One of the things that I'd be looking at is to basically see if CM at risk would be an appropriate delivery model for us, and if not, then possibly why the other option is chosen. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions from any other council members? Hearing none, again, thank you so very much.
Okay.
We
Thank you.
appreciate this, and it's obvious you've put a lot of work into this, and we look forward to hearing back from you again soon.
You bet. Thank you.
Okay, we will now be moving on to item C, accountability, transparency, and performance reviews. And I will turn this over to Councilwoman Andabamadu as she places it on the agenda.
Awesome. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll just give a little bit of time for the exit because it might be a little noisy. Okay, awesome. Good evening, everyone. So I am just going to pull up one thing really quickly. Alrighty. So I had placed this item on the agenda for our discussion for us to really talk about looming thoughts around this budget cycle and the way that we could possibly think about a new addition in approaching the budget cycle. So currently, when we go through the budget, I know that staff prepares a proposed budget. We pretty much go through that page by page. And one of the things that I thought would be helpful for us as well as my constituency, suggestions out of my constituency for more transparency and just to understand performance so that we can make much more educated recommendations going forward, was to really understand how performance was achieved the previous year based off of the items and the strategic goals that were outlined. And so essentially what I'd like for us to think about and talk about is possibly when we go into this next budget cycle, having each department up front. We do have a number of different performance indicators that are listed in the book, but for more transparency's sake, kind of doing a retrospective and looking at what were some of the challenges that that department encountered the previous year. Like, let's say, for example, for some of that could be supply chain. For some of that, it could be, didn't have enough X, but really understanding where did projects fall on the previous year? How were they allocated? What were some of those shortfalls so that we can have those learnings going into the budget cycle to have a better gauge on things that we may need to forecast out 2 years from now or things that we need to be mindful of as we're going through the budget cycle. So really it's a way to promote more transparency and accountability, one, for our constituency to be very informed on what happened the previous year without expecting people to go through this 300-page document that may not articulate that in a way that we can understand what happened the previous year. So that's the discussion that I'd like to have to figure out how we can go forward.
Are you basically saying, as we look at our budget, we've gone through that, and it's usually very descriptive of what we've gone through in those. Are you saying, take a look at those performance measurements that we have in there and just give a little more description as to what the challenges were? How have they changed over the years? Is that what you kind of looking at?
Yes, and I would also add in there, if something wasn't accomplished, shedding more light on why so that we can have a better and more informed understanding going into the next year.
Okay, would that be just in the general, within the budget, you know how we have the general descriptions of what tasks were and what they were done? Are you saying give more description of what's in the indicators and saying what's happening within them, or in the actual description of what's going on?
I think it should be presented during the budget cycle. So I think this is my suggestion for my constituency. I think it would be much more helpful if that is presented during the budget. So when the budget does start, having those teams that are already, coming in and presenting their budget asks for the next year, kind of go through that as a preemptive motion before we go into the budget. I think that would be helpful for my constituency as opposed to kind of adding it more into the description and adding more language in here when it's kind of already nuanced.
And I don't want to speak, but going to that, okay, would you then be saying that as we do the budget like we do now, when we're going through the process, that we just have and as you refer to it as transparency, and I'm trying to make sure we're on the same page, that we actually look at those indicators, what may or may not have happened, and just have a greater description as we look at the budget. So as they're going through their budget preparation, that we're really looking for more detail in the performance indicators?
I think they could be in the performance indicators. This is my suggestions. Could be in the performance indicators, or like, for example, could be like, here's just an example. I'll pull a random one out. I'm on page 142. Establish a program to systematically replace regulatory signs throughout the city. It would be helpful to know, was that accomplished? What were the shortfalls? What did you stumble on? Like, did we get to do it? Did we not do it? Like, more more,
Detail.
more detail, exactly.
I know you keep
Like-
referring to it as transparency.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly, so I'll do that.
That's just an example.
Yeah, right. Councilwoman?
Yes, so I think I.
Could she just repeat what she read?
I'm sorry?
Oh, okay.
She-
Don't mind, could you-
Sure.
Okay.
He was just asking if you could repeat the example you used.
Yes, thank you.
And what page that's all, because he's.
I'm
trying
just
to look
pulling
at
a
it.
random one. It's not predetermined, but let me pull a better one. Let me just pull a better one for you, because I just literally just pulled a random one and opened the page. 1 second. Okay.
Then I'll get right back to you, Councilwoman.
So an example could be, I'm on page 184. This is just an example, but I'm open for suggestions and discussion. On page 184, meter replacement system, distribution system recapitalization, design, construct, filter system replacement, media link. Were there challenges encountered achieving those things? Like trying to get more detail and more understanding of, did they get done? What happened? Did we have supply chain issues? Did the cost change? Things of that sort. Like a retrospective of the previous year. What happened? Did it go well? Did it get accomplished? Things like that. Just more information for our constituency to be able to follow along on the process a little bit more seamlessly.
If you don't, all right. All right, well, if you don't mind, please, let me let the councilwoman go right ahead now. Rogers, yeah. Sorry.
So I think I understand what's being asked. So I would say, don't worry about looking at specific programs. I think it's more around the year-end performance review. Taking the time to sit down and look at year-end before you start into the new year. Just taking your time, looking at what happened last year, looking at the end of the year, saying, okay, we were able to accomplish A, but we couldn't get to B because of some decisions maybe the council made. But what it does, it level sets you at the year end of your budget cycle before you move on into the next year. So basically, I mean, that's how I did it in the federal level. It was just at the end of the year, looking at my major programs and seeing what went right and what didn't go right, what were our lessons learned, so that we can move on to the next year and make sure that we level set on those performance objectives. Is that what you're? Okay.
Let me let you respond to that if you need to. Then I'll go back to you, Councilman Dufour. And if you need me to come over with you, we'll do that, okay?
Yes, so basically that's a great example. So that I think, and what I'm basically suggesting is for the departments to share that with us in a public council hearing so that constituency can follow along, because at the end of the day, this is their money. So being a little bit more transparent so that and I'm not saying that we're not being transparent, but what I'm saying, just so that you can make it a little bit more seamless for them to follow along on that year end and understand what happened the previous year before we level set and go forward to the next year.
Councilman Dufour, and then I'm going to go to our finance director.
So I think I think I'm understanding where you're going, but I'm not sure if I'm correct or not, because I think I'm seeing what you're recommending already extant in the budget. I just popped open the budget for people's reference to page 80, and this happens to be the IT department. And it's got the listing of objectives and results for fiscal year 2023. This would be for the 2024 adopted budget. So in the first objective for A, it's got a 2 or 3 sentence explaining what the objective is. Then it's got a paragraph indicating the staff implemented MS endpoint configuration, blah, 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 and explained what happened when it was done. And then further down, if you look at item D, utilize a study to create a subdomain for the police department for the network on the network. And then in the sub-bullet for that, it gives a status on what that is. In this particular case, it says After testing the subdomain, the concept for the police department, it was determined that it was not feasible with our current environment. So I think I'm hearing what you're saying, but I think I'm seeing it match up with what I'm seeing here on page 80. And I'm trying to figure out what the difference would be, or what difference you're looking for other than what's the example that I'm looking at here. And I'm just trying to figure out what the difference is.
I think that's a great example. I think what I would say, based on the feedback from my constituency, is that's a bit vague. So for, like, when you say doesn't meet the needs, why? Why doesn't it meet the needs? Like, just explaining a little bit more and doing that in a public manner, not just writing in a book, because an average person's not reading 300 pages. They're just not. And so I think explaining that a little bit more at the beginning of each section. I mean, I think we have 6 departments in which we actually look at in totality that we look at that would be applicable for this. And so just being a little bit more descriptive and explaining and drawing that out in the beginning in a public manner, I think would help people understand a little bit more what we're doing with their money, and they would feel a little bit more informed, as opposed to us assuming that they're going to read this 300-page document. That's the difference.
Okay. Well, go ahead. I just want to get to Byron because I know you as well.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No. If you respond.
All right. To me, my understanding is, Byron, that you guys go through this section in advance of each department's components. That is to say, city manager or whomever's responsible reviews this as part of that process during the budget process.
That's true, Councilman. Good evening. H. Byron Matthews, Finance Director. What I wanted to bring to Council's attention, and there can always be improvements to our process, but in February, we come to Council with a mid-year review of all of our objectives for the year and all of our capital projects for the year. And staff provides a detailed listing of each one of those projects and where they're at in those projects. And finally, if that project can be accomplished within the next few months before the year end. This book is then delivered to you in April, where those questions are then refined. If we found out that during the mid-year we said we could do something and we could not achieve that during the mid-year, we correct that and it's displayed here. The city manager goes through each department and he goes through many of the objectives and all of the expenditures for each and every department. I just want council to realize that we have internal and external reviewers of this document. And as far as transparency is concerned, I want to assure you that by us getting the GFOA award each year, we have met all of the transparency requirements for our organization. In addition, we have our auditors that work for you, and they come in once a year to tell you whether or not the things we said in this book, did we accomplish those things? So I just want you to be mindful that we have a lot of good things in progress right now, but we're always open to improvements. But if it's not broken,
Mr. Matthews, from my take on it, I just want to make sure that everybody understands. I don't believe there's any questioning about the actual transparency or the validity of any of the data that's coming out. That's not the thing. I think what I heard, and if I'm wrong, please just let me know. What I heard was just trying to get more definition so that the community, when we talk about, when you say, okay, we couldn't meet it, it wasn't needed, that we could have a little more, when we use the word transparency, And that's kind of maybe a misnomer here of what we're really looking at, but we're talking about getting greater definition, I think, of what happened with a task. If we say we couldn't do that, and I'm wondering if that's something that, I understand that you do it internally, because that's how you come up and give us the feedback that we have here. You have that already. I think the real question, if we try to kind of bring it to a head, so to speak, is can you give us a little more definition when you go through that? Without, yes, go ahead, Ms. Rogers.
So,
Councilwoman, I'm sorry.
in the federal sector, because we're responsible for budget for the entire government, and what we would do at year end is because we knew that the average American taxpayer was not going to go through our entire budget. So what we tried to do is create some type of document that helped us be transparent with the American taxpayer on those things that the federal government budgeted for and worked through. So it's not any negativity on the quality of the product. It's more making something available to the public that's easily consumable, telling what has been accomplished. So I understand, I look at this and I see the objectives and the results for the year, and I get that. But what we did with the Bureau of the Fiscal Service was just create like maybe a 2-page fact sheet that just helped to put that definition that the mayor was talking about, to make it clear to the taxpayers. All right, this is what we did. And it's no discounting what has been done or the quality of your work, because from where I sit in my years working with OMB and the Bureau of Fiscal Service and Department of Treasury, I think you all do an outstanding job. So please don't feel like it's being discounted at all. It's just all about making sure that the constituency that we serve clearly understand what it is that you've accomplished in an easily consumable way. And that's it. I don't think it's any more than that, unless I'm over speaking. Okay, all right, thank you.
City Manager?
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Councilman, for the suggestions. What we can do, and we can, as Byron mentioned, we can add to the process. Of course, just for the record, this budget process belongs to the City Council, because once the charter requires me to present the budget April, and then at that point, the process and all things associated belong to you all. So what we can do is take a closer look at, for example, we'll go to the human resources on page 52, for example. You'll see that there's a description. Because what I do is I try to take us through this. I read the descriptions, and I'm doing that not for you all, because I believe you all already know what HR does here. But I do that so that the people that are watching and listening will understand what this particular department does. The next thing I do is I'll go over the objectives and results from last year, the year prior, and then tune them into the objectives for the next year. We can add to their results and try to be more descriptive with them without adding another 20 pages to the document, but be more descriptive there for those who may not understand or may not be so tuned into what we do.
I think that's what we're trying to do.
Also, what we can do, and based on the suggestion that Councilwoman Rogers mentioned, if you look at the beginning of the book, you'll see there is a letter from me to you.
All right.
And that's a 15-page document that I hope you all study and read every year, right? Because I'm essentially pouring out the heart of the organization. So what we can do is take a closer look at this document and possibly add on to it to be a bit more descriptive. And what we'll do is, one of the things I did in the Army, and I had some time to work for the federal government, Department of Education, the best department down there, I say. What we could do, though, is come up with some, a 1 or 2 page fact sheet associated with the budget, which could be considered a quick read. So people, a page that discusses various CIP projects, a page that discusses maybe, that shares some IT, police, and finance facts that are bearing on the budget for people to read. And that could make it, and we could add those 2 things to the current process that, in my 25 years of experience in local government, is the best budget book I've ever seen. And this process is very thorough because we have 5 work sessions for which we could, if you want to, we can log 4 hours per session and dig in as deep as we can. What we want here at staff, though, when we go through the budget, we want to be cross-examined by the city council. We want you all to tell us, to ask us about the projects, because what I'm going to have is, I'm going to ask Willa to move out. She won't be here for the work session. She does other things. But so I put the department director to my right and the finance director to my left. And between the 3 of us, we know it all associated with this budget, and we're living it. And we're prepared to answer any question you have, and either there or go back and research it and come back with it in a public session on television. Can't get much more transparent than that, right? So we're prepared to do that and to mitigate and to make everybody have a warm, fuzzy feeling about the budget process. Now, we're going to be coming to you all in January, right, Byron? But for the input, for budget guidance. And so at that point, also, we'll be looking for specifics from the council, and I like the way we did it last week, where we kind of summarized up so we staff guys could walk away with an assignment. So I would encourage you all to be thinking about that, tax increases, knowing tax increases, whether we adjust our service delivery, fees associated with our recreation operations, all that sort of stuff we're going to be looking for. And any projects that some of you who have districts might want to have in your district. And we're looking for guidance at that point so we can take that. Because right now, for example, tomorrow, Public Works Director is sitting down with the Solid Waste Division and ironing out that budget that they're going to propose to me. And in January, I'm going to cross-examine them and make sure that what they're asking for is reasonable and effective and necessary. And everything from a number of boots we buy for our workers to whether we sell a police car or keep it for another year based on the maintenance associated with it and all those things. So that's all going on right now. And so we can do that associated with this discussion. And we would like for you all to give us all the guidance we need in January so we can push forward. Thank you, sir.
City Manager, if I can just make one more comment.
Go ahead, Mr. Matthews.
Councilwoman Rogers, I just want you to understand that will be within 10 months of the current fiscal year by time we propose the new budget to you. So the review that you are talking about may be something that we can do when the auditors do their presentation for you on the annual finances for the city, and we can couple that with a council meeting and go through some things that the council is interested in.
Can I respond, Mr.
Yeah, if you would.
Okay, I would just say that I think that the letter that the city manager just mentioned would be a perfect basis. I don't think you need to do any extra work and create, something that's easily consumable. I don't think you need to do anything else. Yeah, thank you.
Councilman Staff?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Very quickly, what about the idea of taking some basic information about the budget and having that available on the budget and finance page of the website in really simple, easy to read graphics, just basic information maybe with some links so that residents who are on the budget page can quickly see, oh, this is how much money we spent. These are the departments it goes to. They click on the little part of the pie chart that shows the department, it goes to that department. Just make it a little bit like simple, accessible, so that, it's not, just kind of, I think, the big honking document that people are looking at when they get online. I don't want to create a lot of additional work for you guys. I agree with Councilmember Rogers. I think the summaries that you provide are really great, but maybe just an easy display on the website, some of the basic information from those summaries, just so that residents who are curious can quickly glance at it and have a general idea of what the budget looks like.
Yeah, Councilman Stev, thank you for your suggestion. I just wanted to remind you that the Finance Department prepares a budget in brief for each book. It's a trifold that gives a basically condensed presentation of the budget. And on the financial advisory webpage, we also have at least 15 questions that are related to our budget that we give citizens the answers for. So they're kind of based on surveys that the Financial Advisory Committee has done over the years. We've developed this rope list of questions that is updated annually with the new information in our budget.
And so to that point, so like the graphics that you have on the Financial Advisory Committee's page, the general fund revenues, the general fund expenditures, like that type of pie chart, and the basic information you have, like on the constant yield tax, the tax bill calculator, the property, like little things like that would be great, like on the main budget web page on the website. Because I mean, as you point out, you do have to go to the list of committees, find the Financial Advisory Committee, click on the FAQ. You know what I mean? There's just a lot of steps. And I think to Councilmember Ndubumadu's good point, just something that gives people more of an easier defined visual will make it a little bit easier, I think, for them to kind of get into the, get an overview and kind of know where to go for more information. So not reinventing the wheel, just maybe changing a little bit about where things are placed to make it more accessible to the public.
I think
Thank you.
we've defined that. I think we can take that. Is that something that is doable in understanding of what we're looking for here?
Yes, sir, we can do that. No problem.
No problem?
Got it.
Okay. Thank you very much. I will now open the floor for a motion.
Miss?
Oh, wait, one moment. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, you may. I didn't see.
Thank you, Mayor. Let me start off, first off, saying I don't have any problems with staff with regards to accountability, with regards to transparency, or with regards to performance review. I think this is an excellent document. And to be honest with you, when people ask me about issues with the city, I'll ask, why aren't police on Stony Brook stopping the speeders? Why didn't my trash get picked up today? I relayed this to the city manager and the assistant city manager. I had a constituent actually commend the city for doing a great job trimming the street trees on her street, but they only did the odd side, not the even side. They see problems, they see errors, they see shortcomings, if you will, and they want an explanation. And that's not going to show up in the document. I've had no one ever come to me and suggest, well, maybe we shouldn't, on page 184, maybe we shouldn't replace the booster station generator because there's no justification for it, because that's not a level that the citizenry really has an understanding or a grasping of. And to be honest with you, this document has morphed over the times. This is the 23rd one, I believe, that I've been involved with. Has morphed over time, and yes, it has changed a little bit. Additional information has been put in, but there's been a good factual basis on why it needed to be there. And my concern is if we do too much in putting too much information in this, not 20 pages, I think you'll have 20 pages per section, and it'll be too much micromanagement. And if you look, you've got workload and performance indicators. That tells a lot with the staffing, if you will. The expenditures, when I went through the document, when I was in the council for each of the budget hearings, you know, I looked there and I computed, it's not here, but I computed what the delta was for each item in this book. And if it had a significant plus delta or a significant negative delta, I raised questions and had staff explain why this happened. If the change is what inflation would cause that number to change, then it's fairly static, if you will, from one budget to the next. You look at a lot of the other things with regards to the proposed objectives. As you're reviewing this document, council has input on that, and I've seen over the years many times things have been added, and staff has responded favorably to what was added. And with the objectives and results for the year, that's usually a definitive, but at the same time, if a council member had questions, there is additional information coming, and it would be included in this document. So if it's not too taxing on staff, then enhancing some of what we already do would be appropriate, but I'm concerned that we may be tying your hands if we ask you to do too much, because the information is there. It's just a matter of whether the individual is willing to go through it. And to be honest with you, this document probably has more significance for staff, for us, for the regulators outside, and for probably the elected officials in Annapolis than the average citizen. So I would just say I've always felt that this was an excellent document. If there are tweaks that can be made to it, it's appropriate. If the good councilwoman has some specifics rather than just the generalities in this blurb here, it'd be helpful. But I commend staff for what they've done over the years. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. So staff, you know what's required as we move forward, and we'll take care of that. One last thing, Councilwoman Ender.
Thank you so much. I just want to speak up really quickly because I just want to make sure that my intent is not being misrepresented. I am by no ways implying that staff is trying to hide information from the public or not be transparent or do something that is not good on behalf of the city of Bowie. I am by no means saying that. What I am doing is simply advocating for my working class constituency in District 4 to create a simpler way for them to digest the information so that they can quickly make informed decisions to send their recommendations and suggestions to us as council members. And I do believe that that's important. But when you are a parent or the head of the household in District 4 and going to work every day from 9 to 5 and you're picking up your kids after school, the last thing that you're probably going to do is go read a 300-page document line in and line out. So I don't think it's about the generalities of the document, but more so making things simpler for them to be able to consume it and understand in a concise manner what happened and what suggestions do they want to bring to us so that we can be the best possible advocates on behalf of them. So this was a really great discussion. Thank you all for your contributions. Thank you, staff, for your already marvelous continuous work. And I look forward to a simpler, more digestible way for them to consume the information and make good recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you. I would open the floor to a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn to
like
closed session under the statutory authority of the Maryland Annotated Code, General Provisions, Article 3-305B, Section 1, to discuss the appointment, employment, assignment, promotion, discipline, demotion, compensation, removal, resignation, or performance evaluation of appointees, employees, or officials over whom this public body has jurisdiction, any other personnel matter that affects one or more specific individuals.
Second.
Thank you.
It's been moved and properly second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Same favor? We don't get to vote. Here, we get to press the button. It's not up there. So, I think it was. Motion carries. Let's go. All right. Do not pass. Go. I'd like to thank everyone for joining us this evening. Sitting through the meeting. Again, happy holidays to you. Look forward to the new year and sharing with you, and please stay safe through the holidays. Thank you.